Hi, this is Joyce Polino Crane. I'm the news director at WestfordCAT. I'm here today with Joanne Sargent, Penny Lacroix, and Leslie Howard. And they're here to talk about an upcoming event that is so exciting and interesting. I can't wait to hear about it. It is a June 8th soiree or gala at the home of Joanne, which is the house called, I guess it's called the Abbott House.
Correct.
The Abbot Estate. And it is a fundraiser for the Historical Society on June 8th. You're going to give us the details in a little while, but first let me introduce Penny as the director of the Westford Museum and Leslie as one of the board members at the Historical Society. So before we get to you, Joanne, I'm hoping you'll tell us how you ended up owning this amazing, beautiful house at the intersection of Graniteville Road and Main Street. I thought maybe we would ask Penny to give us a little overview on the upcoming soiree on June 8th. We're taping this show on June 1st, so it's only a week away.
Only a week away,
from
right.
today.
So it's an evening event starting at 7 p.m. We're selling tickets online for it. Members of the Historical Society get a really nice break to encourage people to become members. We're having food from Concord Tea Cakes, the Westford Regency, edible arrangements, Trader Joe's. So we should have a nice spread out there. Rick McNeil has made some glassware for us that everybody will take home.
Which I'm dying to see. Hi, Rick. I hope you'll show me some wonderful glassware. I'm very into glassware.
It is beautiful. It has our little logo. That's it's a door knocker that's hands holding an apple. So, meant for Westford Center. And we're having a silent auction. I brought one of the pieces.
Yeah,
it's going to be in that.
I'm going to ask you or Leslie about that in a little while. Some of the ideas are intriguing, so you'll have to go through those for us.
Okay. So the silent auction, we tried to choose items that were unique, that you couldn't go out and purchase someplace. Dave Brody is offering a personalized tour of Nabnasset Lake.
Oh, that should be interesting.
Yes. And
by boat or by land?
By boat, by boat. So it's an evening cruise and guided by him. And Ellen Hardy is offering breakfast on her piazza with, of course, muffins from Muffins on Main.
Oh, I think I would like to bid on that. Sounds like a blast.
This is a picture that it's a collage of the different cupolas in Westford, and that is it's printed on metal, so it's nice and sharp.
Oh, I would love to have that.
And we've been thinking about maybe doing some kind of contest to see who can name all of the cupolas.
That's a great idea.
So.
You should do the contest. So, Leslie, the tickets are how much, and how do people get them?
They are $90 for Historical Society members and $125 for non-members. They're available on our website, or you can, I think, go to the Historical Society when Penny is there next Monday and Wednesday and purchase tickets on site there.
The address there is it 2 or 4 Boston Road? I'm never sure.
The museum's at 2 and the office is at 4.
Okay,
so
so they go to the office at 4
Yes.
Boston Road for the tickets, or online at westford.museum.
Museum.westford.org.
Oh, okay. We'll put a slide up.
Okay.
But we should say it again, museum.westford.org.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go on, Leslie.
So I think it's going to be a really terrific event. We do have some music that maybe we'll talk about a little bit later, a harpist and a pianist, and there'll be the silent auction, like Penny mentioned, with some truly great items up for auction. And in addition to that, the board members have all gotten together and purchased a bottle of wine, and so that wine basket will be there as well, which I think is really exciting. You can get some great bottles of wine for a good price, maybe.
Is this very special wine?
Yeah, I think some of them will be some very nice bottles of wine, and so we're really looking forward to having everyone in the house for an exclusive look of it look at the house, especially the third floor, which will be open for tours on Thursday night only. The house is on the house tour on Saturday the 10th, but the third floor won't be open, so this will be an extra special event in order to see the entire house.
And this is it's a black tie affair, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Optional. Black tie optional.
Optional.
Optional. So ladies can wear gowns if they want?
If they want
That
to, you
sounds
know,
so
cocktail
romantic.
attire, you know, well, it's a very nice event and a fundraiser for the museum.
And so there'll be food served.
Mhm.
And then Joanne, who's sitting here so quietly and patiently, you are the owner of the house, so you have to tell us a little bit about what the attendees should look for when,
Sure.
you know, in terms of historic value. What are the highlights
What
of
are the
the?
highlights? Well, first, I just want to say that, you know, my husband and I are excited to be kind of opening up our home, because I think that as a teenager growing up and knowing Westford Center, it was always who lives there and wonder what it looks like. So we're thrilled to have the opportunity to kind of showcase the house.
Oh,
which
you're
is
going to be
great.
telling
So-
us that story in a few minutes.
Yes, but I think, you know, some of the unique features are the, you know, original woodwork. I'm going to have some photos that were provided to me by Natalie Abbott, the daughter who lived there. So I think that's really fun to see back in the day, you know, what certain rooms look like as compared to today. So we've lovingly restored the home, but it's always a work in progress.
So what's it going to? How many people are going to be in the house? Do you think? What's the estimate?
We've sold over 50 tickets right now,
Oh, wow.
and we're estimating between 50 and 100. There's parking on Randolph Circle back behind, which we've been told can handle at least that. So.
Oh yeah, so there's parking just behind the house. There's a little road just as you turn the corner onto Graniteville. I know, I've gone down there snooping in years past. So why a fundraiser, Penny? What is that all about?
Well, all nonprofits have to raise money. It's just one of the facts of life with a nonprofit. And we need money to keep the museum going, to keep our exhibits going up, keep events happening. We try to keep our lecture series, when we have those, we try to keep them free, and so we need funds to be able to pay people.
You don't get any funds from the town?
No. we
Nothing.
don't.
So you're
The
completely.
town owns the buildings, so we don't have to pay for the buildings.
Okay, but you pay for the maintenance, or does the town do that?
The town, right.
Okay.
So all the restoration that went on at the museum last year and
Yeah.
the year before, they had arranged for some grants, but
That's
the town.
right, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they did such a great job.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but we pay for all the exhibits inside and caring for all of the collections.
Yes. So how did the idea of a gala soiree come about, Leslie?
We had been thinking about ways to have a fundraiser, and when we thought of the house tour and joined together with St. Catherine's, we decided to jointly do the house tour together. That's on the Saturday. But then we thought, well, what else can we do that coincides with the house tour, but also something really special, really spectacular? And so we thought, what about if we had a gala, a soiree at one of the homes? And the Abbott house is just so incredible. I mean, driving through town when we first moved here, it's always the big brown house in the center, and even my mother knows it, you know, from the few times that she's been here. And so the Sargents were so generous to open their house
I'm
to
trying
us.
to imagine the approach. Like, did you guys know Joanne before this, or did they come knocking on your door, Joanne?
I don't know if do we want to tell that story right now?
Whatever you want to say.
It was, Jeff Hall had arranged it with Michael, with her husband. So when I called Joanne, she said something to the effect of, "Oh."
And then
But she was very gracious about it.
And then I started thinking of all the things that I now can get done.
That you now have to get
Right,
done.
there was a little wifely motivation there to say yes and love to.
Well, this might be a good time for Joanne to tell us how she ended up in this amazing house. You have an amazing story
Sure.
to tell.
Well, it's a fun story. So I'm a nurse, and back in the 80s, I was doing some marketing for a walk-in medical center that I worked at. And growing up in Chelmsford, I didn't know much about Westford, so made it my job to come and sort of do a little drive-through. And I went down Graniteville Road and came upon an opening, and I thought, that's new. And so when I pulled down that street, I literally stopped, and I became obsessed with the house. I said, that's my house.
So what street were you in?
Well, it's now called Julie Joy Lane,
yeah,
but
the one behind the house?
correct,
Yeah.
that's now developed.
Uh-huh.
And I just remember, making a quick phone call to a friend of mine that lived down the street, and I said, tell me everything you know about that home. I said, I've never seen it. It's always been behind bushes and very ominous. And my friend said, well, Joanne, somebody lives there. I said, well, I'm sure they do, but I want that house. So long story short, she put me in touch with a local realtor who sort of knew the history. And the realtor said, well, we have nothing to lose. Let me knock on their front door and just say, someday when you thinking of selling, call me. And to her great surprise, he said to her, well, why don't we set up an appointment now? And she said, are you sitting down? And from there, it was just amazing.
So was it, you don't have to say the name of the previous owners unless you want to, but were they just at a stage of life where they were ready to move on?
That's an hour show to tell you the story. It was a very unique story. If anybody is from Westford, look up some names. There was a gentleman that originally bought it from the Abbott family when Mrs. Abbott passed away, and his name was Zoltan Phillips. And he had a colorful history. And he ended up losing the house, but giving it to a gentleman who had actually bought land behind us that never perked. So he had this lot that he couldn't build on, and he was stuck with it. And Zoltan said, well, why don't you live in the house, and we'll work out a deal. So retrospectively, it appears that he had some difficulty maintaining the house and living in it. So our timing was impeccable.
Yeah.
And so I feel very lucky to be there. I feel it was just this very strange calling. I felt very gravitated towards the house. And we never had an intention to sell it. The rumors were, oh my God, they're going to buy it and turn it into a bed and breakfast, or they're going to turn it into condos. No, we literally just wanted to restore it. My husband and I developed a real interest in antiques early on in our marriage, and we continue to have that great love to this day.
Wow, what a legacy of love. I mean, that's just
a passion.
Yeah. So you've been living there for 30 years
Just
now?
about, yes.
And how did you remodel it? Or I don't even know if that's
Slowly.
the right word. but-
Yes. No, we took one room at a time, freshened it up. I think that to our great surprise, when we had electricians come and plumbers, they were amazed at how well the house was built. And I think it's, for me, truly, I don't think I could reproduce that house today if I had to. Certainly couldn't afford to. But it was very well built. So all we really needed to do was freshen it up. And with the help of some decorators and just my own ideas, we sort of have taken time. We're still working on different projects in the house, but we're just about there.
Wow. What is it like living in there? I mean, do you sense any spirits, any ghosts,
No,
any
not
presences?
really. It's not a house that we're afraid to be in. We've had a few bat encounters, which has been a little trying. And we have tennis rackets by our bed to deal with that if need be. But they're an endangered species, so I once called an exterminator, and he said, "Sorry, you're on your own. They're an endangered species. You have to learn to live with them and
No,
cohabitate."
really?
So,
Oh,
but
my
it's a little startling when you have to deal with one in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
But other than that, no, the house is sound. We're very comfortable living there. We have good security, so we're really comfortable there.
How many bedrooms are there?
Well, I think if you look at the original plans, I think they said there's 11 bedrooms. One day, a funny story is my husband and I were out doing yard work, and I'm in my overalls, and he's in his jeans, and all of a sudden this car stopped, and these two elderly women got out of the car, and one of them had an Irish accent, fairly thick, and she wanted to know who lived there. And I said to her, well, Joanne and Michael Sargent, because I wasn't sure who she was, and I didn't quite let into who I was. And I said, may I ask who's asking? And she mentioned her name, and she said, I was a nanny here in the
my
home
goodness.
for the Abbott children many years ago. And she said, and I thought to come here. And so then I introduced myself to her. I said, well, I'm Joanne Sargent. I live here. Now picture me, a rake in one hand, overalls. And she looked at me and she said, oh my, how times have changed. And I said, yes, they have. So I brought her in, and she was great. She kind of gave me her own little history tour of this was my bedroom, and this was where this one stayed. So it was kind of fun.
That's amazing. Have other things like that happened
Not
since you've been there?
that, but yet one fun story is that, so Mrs. Hardy had approached me once. And
You
she
mean
said,
Ellen Hardy, our former town moderator.
That's right. And of course a neighbor, and she had called me and said, I have a letter that I think you'd be very interested in reading. And so she brought it over, and it was from Natalie, the daughter. And it was a really nice letter, and inquiring who lived there and what have they done with the home, and quite frankly, one of the captions was, and what have they ever done with that dreadful kitchen, you know, because it was a servant's kitchen, and it really wasn't something that nowadays it's something that's a big feature in a home, but then it was servants and, anyway, so I called her, and we had a 2-hour really nice conversation about the home. I asked her about certain rooms, and I think it was very clear to me that their upbringing was very strict. Children were seen and not heard, and the playground was, acres away. But it was fascinating to get her perspective on how it was as a child growing up and the different rooms that.
So you're talking about Natalie Abbott, who was the daughter of, I'm not sure I've got the timing right in my head.
I think she was Edward's daughter, is that right?
Right, and exactly. And so when I met with her or spoke with her, she was in her 80s and was living in Fredericksburg, Virginia. But she was the daughter of the, John Abbott and.
So there was,
Yeah.
Abbott is the one who built the house back
Okay.
in the 1890s.
1890s.
And then it was
With his-
Edward, was his son, who took over as the president of the Abbott Worsted Company.
Okay.
And he lived there, and so
John W.P. Abbott? No, he was the
that
youngest.
he's
He was the youngest
a
of John.
generation back.
Mhm.
Okay. But she often referred, Mother's Gardens and Mother's North Chamber. So
Oh my
it
goodness.
was fun to have a conversation with her.
I wonder how big the family was.
It was her and 2 brothers.
So it wasn't a big family
No,
then.
not at
So they had a
all.
lot of space in there,
They did,
as you do.
as we do.
So, what are you hoping, Leslie? What are you hoping to accomplish with this fund besides raising funds, which is obviously an important task? But
Right.
there's more going on here than that.
There is more going on here. I think it's an exciting way to see another home in Westford, but also a way to meet the faces who are behind the Westford Historical Society and Museum, Penny being one, and several board members will be there as well. And also to learn about the museum and what we have to offer. We've just updated and upgraded a lot of our exhibits, and we have 2 really special ones coming this fall, or 2 opening this fall.
Not opening this fall,
Fall,
but
but
they're still in.
They're
in the works.
coming.
They're
Yeah,
coming.
they're coming. So one will be, can I talk about? One will be the founding of Westford Academy, and also more about the beginnings of Westford as a town. So it will be, I think, really exciting. And
Yeah.
we do offer tours to the 3rd grade classes. And so we had a great experience with that this year. So next year's 3rd grade class will have an even better experience. And so I think, teaching people and getting people excited about what the museum has to offer. We are open Sundays from 2 to 4. It's free admission, and it's a great way to spend an afternoon, I think. Come in and see
what's on exhibit
see what's
there.
on exhibit.
Is it every
yeah.
Sunday that it's open?
Most Sundays. Yeah.
Important holidays like Mother's Day were closed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course, that is a big.
We do have still on exhibit probably through the fall until we switch our focus to Nabnasset. We have Sandy Shepherd created houses all from the center. So in the middle of the museum, we have this large, I guess, sort of table, I guess, with a map of the center, and you can sort of move the houses around, and there's a history about what it is. Ellen Hardy did a wonderful talk about it, and
yes,
so you can
actually,
come in and see it.
WestfordCAT actually did record that,
Right.
and we have been working on it. There were some technical challenges, so it's taken us a while to get it on the air, but we are planning to put that on the
Yeah.
air because
would
I
be
heard, I
great.
haven't seen it, but I've heard it was
Yeah,
fascinating.
She's a wealth of information, and
Yes,
so
yes.
she spoke at our annual meeting last fall, and I was busy taking notes for when I'm a docent there on Sundays. And so it's really great to see how the center has changed, and so that's something that's really special that's there now, and it will be going off exhibit probably in the fall when we switch over to our focus on Nebnasset.
We're going to keep it handy, though, so
Yes.
that we can use it with the third grade tours every year, and because it just was received so well. We did a variation. We didn't do the 1 hour version for the third graders. We just did a 15-minute version.
Probably
but
a good
very
idea.
interactive for them,
Yes.
hands-on.
Yeah, that sounds like a wonderful project for the third graders, and it kind of complements the Parker's Village Schoolhouse effort that goes on every year for the fifth graders, so it'll just lead them right into that.
Absolutely.
It's a wonderful historic project. So, and Joanne, you have a business. Can you tell us a little bit about that? You grew up in
I
Chelmsford?
grew up in Chelmsford, but again, knew people in Westford, so felt very attached to the community as well. It was so beautiful. But I have a business in Chelmsford, 2 businesses. One that we work with employers, and we do health and wellness programs and manage workers' comp injuries. And then just had a passion for being your best self, so I started Med Spa about 8 years ago. So we're right across the street from each other, so I don't have far to commute to work for either job.
Lovely. Yes. Yes, it's not a far drive at all. I go
No,
the
it's great.
opposite direction because I leave Chelmsford and come to Westford.
Sure. And you asked questions about the event and what you hope it accomplishes. But I think for me personally, I know people have always been respectful of that's a home. People do live there, but I think we're excited to share our home with the community because we work a lot, so we don't get to interface with a lot of people. So I think for us it'll be fun to meet people, put faces behind voices, as you point out, and open up our home because it has some character and it has some history and it's so much part of the town. So we're just really happy to be able to share it for this important event.
It is a very generous thing to do on many levels. And I'd like to talk a little bit, we only have about 5 minutes left, but I do want to talk a little bit about history because I love hearing about history. I love the stories and going back in time. But for me personally, as a journalist, I'm recording history every single day. So everything that I do, I'm always very cognizant that somewhere, sometime in the future, this is going to be read. And especially, the really in-depth stories that I sometimes write. But so I appreciate the significance of history from the world of today. But I'd love to hear any of you talk about how you value, what your thoughts on history are in terms of you are living history inside that house, and you are curating history. And you're also curating history. So I don't know, anybody have any thoughts on this?
I think a museum is a way to connect the community with that past. And Westford is such a growing community right now. So many people moving in who really, some of whom have no roots in New England.
Yeah.
And so what we try to do is to introduce the Westford specific history. Why is Westford special? Why is Westford Academy special? The museum is in the original Westford Academy building. It was built in 1794,
Yes.
which is, it's so cool that we have that building. It's the oldest co-educational secondary school that's still standing. Apparently there was one that was built before us, but the building's gone, so we've got the place.
Oh, right. I didn't know that there was one built before this one.
Yeah, and I'm not going to remember it off the top
Yeah.
of my head. But
Interesting.
but the fact that it was co-educational in the 18th century is really remarkable, because at that point it was mostly boys who were being educated beyond just reading and a little bit of arithmetic. And the Abbotts were a big family in starting Westford Academy. One of the John Abbotts was not John. One of the Abbotts was the treasurer for like 50 years, a long time. And
The treasurer of the...
Westford Academy trustees.
Oh yeah, I just read that.
It might have been Abiel, was it?
It might have been Abiel. How do you pronounce it? Abiel?
Abiel. You have the notes there.
I know, I have the cheat sheet. I always have a cheat sheet. Shortly after the Townsend Corporation, he was the youngest son of John W.P. Abbott, co-founder of what would become the Abbott Worsted Company. He was a graduate of Westford Academy. He went to MIT. His service to the town included acting as a Westford Academy trustee, town treasurer, trustee of the J.V. Fletcher Library, school committee. I'm thinking, my goodness, what a contribution one person can make to a community.
Right.
It's
he
really
would have gotten the
remarkable.
Kiwanis Person of the Year award, probably.
Yes, he definitely would have. And it's really funny, this town has such a long history of commitment to education. When I first arrived in town, Leslie, you weren't around then, Penny was, I think, back in 2002.
Yep.
I was covering the town for the Boston Globe, and so I didn't live here for quite a long time, but I would come back and forth. And I remember the first time I ever entered Westford, I thought, this is the prettiest town I've ever been in. What a beautiful town. I was coming for a town meeting. But I used to say to my friends, everyone in Westford dresses like a farmer, but they all have PhDs.
Well, hopefully we're breaking that stereotype here.
Oh, that's the greatest compliment I think anybody can pay in town, because I think it's a really down-to-earth community with a very high level, a very interesting population, people who love to learn. So we only have 30 seconds left. Penny, what did you want to make sure everybody knew?
I would just like to echo the thank you to Joanne and your husband Michael, because this is just amazingly generous, and we're so excited about it and can't wait to see the house in action.
Great.
Yes, I agree, and I look forward to seeing how it all turns out.
Yeah.
So for WestfordCAT, this is Joyce Polino Crane. Have a great day.